I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, get ready to beam yourself up. You're going to be delighted by a wonderful feature called The Friendly Little Martian by Bruce Courand Lane. This is a charming children's book, complete with captivating illustrations, and it tells the story of a warm-hearted Martian and the adventures and friendships it experiences. Bruce, great to see you here today.
Thanks, Logan. Good to see you.
Tell the folks at home how you came up with the story of The Friendly Little Martian.
Well, it's interesting. It'll be 30 years December. My fiance at the time was not feeling well, so I told her this story on top of my head, and it was The Friendly Little Martian. And 5 years later, after we were married, she said, "Did you write that down?" And I said, "Yeah." "Well, no." So I wrote it down, and then another decade goes by, and I decided to publish it, and that's pretty much the story of it, how it became.
Well, we're glad you did, because it's a great story. Kids must love it. Kids of all ages would enjoy it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Let's give the folks at home the overview. What's the big picture? Tell them what the story is basically about.
Well, it's about a friendly little Martian that lands in a real valley in Costa Rica called Orosi, but in the story it's kind of fictionalized, and where I talk about smiling trees and happy flowers, and the Martian comes in, and the townspeople didn't know what to make of this little Martian, and he finds this little old man in front of a little blue house, and they became friends. And after his little encounter with the little old man, he came back through the village, and they were all cheering and happy, and he flew away, and they laughed, and it's a story of laughter and happiness, and children love that because it promotes goodness, and not something that's I tend to see a lot of storylines out there that are not quite just happy,
Yeah.
a little bit too tough for children,
Yeah,
but
even in children's books, you would think that the
yeah,
theme
yeah,
universally would be happy, good, that kind of
right,
thing, but a lot
yes.
aren't. Have you envisioned this as like an animated, I guess a movie or a short?
Yes, I think it would be something that if somebody wanted to pick that up, I would be all on board with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great character. I think kids
Yeah.
need a little hero like the little Martian, and I think they'd just be intrigued by it. I mean, the whole word Martian, gets kids thinking like, are there people up there? Could there be? Are they down here? So we never know, which is part of the fun. Tell us about the illustrations. They're great in the book. How did you get those together?
Uh, it was done through an illustrator at my publisher, and her name was Julie Hasegawa, and she just I didn't have to help her at all. She totally went with it, and just amazing illustrations, beautiful illustrations. She was fantastic.
That's
Yeah,
great. She read the story. She picked up on what she thought you might want. And when you looked at it, you said, yeah, that's exactly what I want, because everything
exactly.
does fit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now, have you written any other children's books, or is this starting a new chapter in your life? Tell us about that.
No, well, I had to go back to work, and so I wasn't able to market the first book,
Mhm.
and so but I did do a sequel last year, um, called The Friendly Little Martian Returns,
Hmm.
and this one has a little bit more substance, where he goes back to see the old man, his friend, and ends up taking his whole family up in the spaceship
Hmm.
to go see Saturn and all these things, and very simple, nothing extravagant, but a lot of fun, a lot of
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
it sounds fun.
And
So there's two books out there. There's a Friendly Little Martian and then the sequel as well.
The Friendly Little Martian Returns.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah.
Now I got to ask
And
you,
the
go ahead,
go
you
ahead.
go.
Well, I was just going to say that you know Julie Hasegawa was no longer with my publisher when I wrote the second book,
Mhm.
and so it took a lot longer to publish the book because they're trying to copy her work,
Right.
and the second book came out fantastic. They really did a good job. So
Great.
just
So you're able to
just work
keep
with it.
within the same style so they look like they go together.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So
Now,
yeah,
do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in Martians?
I have to not. Yeah, yeah. I've always been kind of a alien buff ever since I was a kid, but I've never seen one. I've never touched one. Who knows, right? I would like to think that we're not alone. You know,
Right.
be hard to
Yeah,
think
I
that we're
mean, you
not.
look at all those stars up there, all those planets, you got to figure there's somebody out there besides us. Why would ours be the only inhabited planet, right?
Right. Not to
Yeah.
mention that uh, it just seems like in the last few years, the whole alien subject has really been brought up to the surface.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, what a great time to write that second book.
Exactly, exactly. It seems like the government's even acknowledging it now. There's congressional hearings on
Yeah,
aliens and UFOs and God knows what else. If they tell us that much, there's probably that much more that goes with it. So
that's
it's very,
true.
very interesting. Now, you first told the story as a story to your girlfriend, who's now your wife. Years later, you wrote it down. Did you remember it all? Did you have to change it? What was the writing process like once you decided to put it down onto paper?
No, it was amazing. I remembered it completely from when I told her. What I told her that day was my first book, basically, and so it was no problem. And it's funny because when I actually published the book, I was working in a factory making $10 an hour,
Mhm.
and I was able to take care of myself and do my part and still publish the book at $10 an hour.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you did. Have you tested the book out on any kids? Have you read it to any children?
Oh yes, many. I started off with friends' children, and they all loved it. And then I went to like community centers and scheduled times to read to like 10, 15 children, and they
Mhm.
all loved it. Yeah, yeah.
Do you do voices and the whole bit when you're doing it? Do you have a friendly little alien voice? Let's hear it.
No, because he doesn't talk. It's basically narrated more than any kind of
Gotcha.
yeah.
Not a lot of dialogue. Okay. I should put you on the spot. Say, well, if he did talk, what would he sound like? So
Well, it would sound like me.
exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
Well, that's
uh,
great. So you've been having fun writing these books and getting them published and working with the illustrators. It sounds like we've got a new, at least part-time career for you.
yeah, it's fun more than anything. If it develops into anything else, that's great. But
Exactly. And it's
I'm
great to have the work out there because you never know who's going to read it. Maybe Steven Spielberg who will say, it's been a long time since E.T. It's
yeah.
time to make the friendly little Martian. That would be great. That'd be great. So you've got the book out, you've got the sequel out. Are you working on anything else?
Actually, I'm working on an autobiography right
Okay.
now. Yeah, I took some time off from work. Uh, I'm 60 years old right now, and
Hmm.
so when I was 58, I took some time off from work and rented a cabin to write. And so I wrote. I've almost completed my autobiography, but I really don't want to go into that too much right now because I
Sure.
probably scare off the children.
Well, it sounds great. It sounds like you had your own little Thoreau experience living off the grid and in a cabin writing your life story. That sounds
Yeah,
terrific. That sounds
yeah.
terrific. Well, Bruce has written a wonderful children's story book. It's got great pictures. It's a wonderful story. It's an instant classic, in my opinion. It is called The Friendly Little Martian. And if you love that book, there's a sequel, The Friendly Little Martian Returns. Wonderful holiday gifts. The links are below this interview. Click it, order it, support an independent writer and a voice like Bruce's, and do good for your family by sharing a wonderful, magical story that he made up at the top of his head, about a decade or so ago, and finally put it down in the paper. And we're glad he did. Bruce, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thanks, Logan. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on
All right.
Spotlight.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great one. I'm glad the signal didn't crash while you were driving. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
True
Happy
enough.
trails, my friend.